my name is Susan Miranda, and I own Chromatic Fusion Oboe Studio, and I also make reeds for my students and other people. I play with the Keown Quintet, and I also play with Duo Leon, and I teach at a few universities, Dordt University and Northwestern College in Iowa, and I will begin at Hamline University this semester. So a couple years ago, I did some little teaching videos on the MBDA Honor Band etudes, and I thought that I would go ahead and do one again this year. It's a little bit late, but hopefully it is still helpful. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the tricky parts of this etude. Now, an etude is typically a smaller piece of music that has a whole bunch of things, is kind of comprised of all of the items that could potentially be in a longer work of music. So dynamic changes, various articulations, just all sorts of things kind of compiled into one small piece. So the first thing to kind of note is it says sempre staccato. And I think you probably know what a staccato note is. A nice, short, very separated note. That's a staccato. And sempre means always. So it means that the whole piece is staccatoed. And it says tempo di tarantella. So a tarantella is a type of dance, and it's in two. And so that is why the dotted quarter note is what kind of gets the beat. So if we split the 3/8 notes into two sections, the first eighth note and the fourth eighth note are where we listen to our metronome beat. I would start this practicing it using a metronome click on every single eighth note. Probably not every time that you practice it, but just to get you in the habit of having consistency. So let's take a look at this. The first thing that I ran into was in pick up to measure 9, the articulations change. And especially when playing an etude for an honor band audition, you want to make sure that you make those distinctions. It's also piano there. So we went from mezzo forte to piano. The one spot that for some reason my fingers just weren't happy with was getting from the G to the C. And I don't know what the deal is with that, but let's just go through here. I would do all of those intervals. So A to D in measure 9. And then G to C. And then F to B. And that's something that would be good just to do a few times over and over. So when you get to that point and maybe your fingers are like, what's going on? They should know what note comes next, even though it's not in that kind of scalar upward motion. You're starting a new scale. So then I would go really slow. And I would do that whole section. So let's see. Another thing that can kind of foul up our fingers or our brains is the repetitive notes at measure 13, 14, and then it kind of goes back and forth for a few measures, but then they kind of trick you. So make sure that you're doing measure 13 through 18 multiple times slowly before you attempt it faster. Let's see. What other fun things? Should we just talk about the best way to do a staccato, a nice short separated staccato. So when you legato tongue, legato is a more connected sound. You are actually going to connect the notes with your tongue. So that's a legato tongue. So for a staccato tongue, you really want to separate them and make big space in between them. So I like to tell my students that you are actually using two tongues. For a legato tongue, you're using one to connect them, but for staccato, you're starting the note with a tongue and ending the note with a tongue, and then there's a small space before the next note comes. So start the note and end it with your tongue. And oftentimes you're saying more of a two, that kind of sound. And the quicker your tongue can get back to the reed and shut off the air, the shorter that staccato will be. So I could do a lengthy staccato, or I could do a short staccato. And it's all about the length of time your tongue is not touching the reed. So with that in mind, let's go back to the very beginning, and I would start with just those first four notes. And if you want to really exaggerate and overdo it, that's probably a good idea, because as we kind of continue through the piece, our brain stops thinking staccato, 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 and they get longer and longer and longer. So the more that you kind of overdo it or exaggerate, the better it will be, because once your brain is not thinking as much, oftentimes your kind of muscles in your body will take over for it. All right, that brings me to, I think, the final point that I want to make about this piece. There are a variety of rests throughout, right? We begin on a pickup note and we end, if you're counting this in 6/8, there's 6/8 notes, right? So that quarter note in measure 4 is 2 counts. So make sure that you rest on 3, 4, 5, and then you do the pickup note again at 6. So when you're practicing this, play it really slowly to begin with, because that will make counting the rests much easier. And then when you take it into ba 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 ba. Does that make sense? Fantastic. All right. Well, I will go ahead and play it for you now. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I know the audition is coming up here in February. So good luck, and thank you so much for watching. And if you want some more fun oboe tips, go ahead and hit subscribe. And I have a lot of really fun oboe videos, and I am adding them all the time. In the Rubank Advanced Method book, we are looking at page 46, number 6, measures 1 through 26, and they're asking for the dotted quarter note to be 92.